Hello, and welcome to the Smart Inclusion Podcast, where we connect the dots between investing in people, investing capital, and preserving the planet. Each episode brings you powerful stories from thought leaders like women, indigenous people, and unsung heroes who are driving the global energy transition forward. This podcast ties together the complex threads of sustainability, showing how the public can engage with new opportunities in energy transition and invest in their communities. Whether you're interested in the future of energy, climate change, sustainable investing, or understanding why these changes matter to you, Smart Inclusion delivers insightful conversations that break down what's happening, what's on the horizon, and how you can be part of this transformational movement. I'm your host, Todd Q. Adams. Welcome to the Smart Inclusion Podcast, where we connect the dots between investing in people, investing capital, and protecting our environment. This is the essence of equity economics. I'm your host, Todd Q. Adams. Today we have a friend of mine that we're going to talk about we're going to really dive deep into EV charging. EV charging, not your father's EV charging. We're going to talk about EV charging, democratizing EV charging to provide more options for small and medium-sized businesses with innovative charging networks. Also democratizing or access or increasing the amount of access of EV charging through this solution. And then Kobby, our guest, Kobby Osei-Kusi, who is the CEO of Pirl, that's Pirl EV Charging, will also share his vision so how we can use this for other use cases to actually help us with load management for our grid. So we're going to look at solving problems today as well as solving problems in the future. So thank you, thank you for that. And I look forward. And Kobby, tell us who you are, man, and just kind of tell us your story.
Yeah, Todd. Thanks for having me. This podcast is really timely. We're at a very critical time in this energy transition. So really appreciate this work that you're doing to bring out the stories of how the equity and energy transition is happening. So just a bit about my background. I grew up in Ghana. When I was in sixth grade, I wanted to be an astronaut. So I wrote to NASA. NASA wrote back with their summer program. I think it was around $5,000. This was in the mid 90s. And obviously my family couldn't afford that, but that was my impetus and desire to come to the US to broaden my horizons. So when I was 18, I took my SATs, didn't know anyone in the US, but got a decent enough score and got almost full scholarship at my college, St. Lawrence University. So 2 weeks before September 11th, got on a plane, and came to the U.S. And started college. And I remember, no one understood me. I was speaking English, but no one understood based on my accent. But that was the experience. And in 4 years, I graduated. I was fortunate enough to get a job on Wall Street. So I was an investment banker at Credit Suisse for 3 years, which was an amazing time. I really learned a lot. And after 3 years of investment banking, I went to business school at Harvard. So that was 2 years. And while I was there, I made a decision to transition from just numbers to an operating tangible role. And secondly, I was very, very passionate about accelerating Africa's economic growth by accelerating the energy generated by African countries. So if you take away South Africa and North Africa, the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa generates about the same amount of energy as New York City, right? Wow. So at that time, I was very, very passionate about playing a role in Africa's economic development. So after business school, I worked at AES, publicly traded US company, but specifically I worked in the Africa Energy Group, where I got to spend time in Ghana, Nigeria, and Benin developing grid scale power plants. So I helped develop over 700 megawatts worth of power plants. Now, about 4 years in, AES decided to sell the Africa group to another private equity entity. And so that was when I decided to switch to build my own company based on what I was seeing in the energy transition in the US, especially around electric vehicles.
Oh, wow. You know what? As I'm listening to that, you often, you hear the question from investors as an example, to what degree are you investing in a solution and to what degree are you investing in a founder? And when I listen to you coming from immigrating from Ghana at 18, having the wherewithal to obtain a full scholarship, uh, find your way into an elitist space like investment banking, which is very exclusive as we know it, and also Harvard Business School. And my point is, without having the cultural experience or cultural context initially in your life, navigating that alone, and then finding ways and also building power plants in African countries and bringing in. There's a social driver there as well in terms of economic development in those respective countries. Benin, you mentioned Nigeria, other places. So you've had this experience with that, and we have a global energy transition. So when I think about that, the attributes that you actually possess are everything that you want in a founder times 10. So, that kind of speaks and gives me a little more insight. And I say that, we've had conversations, but even with that, you've just shared a couple of things with me that I didn't know about you. I think that are very useful and inspirational to everybody that's watching this. So this is just much about the global energy transition, as much of it is about being inspirational and educational and informative. So, with all that being said, and having all the attributes of a founder, you are at Pirl. Tell me, then that leap from that space, which many people would be comfortable in, to deciding to be a founder, and actually now that led you now to actually acquiring a customer, and that path in this space where there's very much a dependency on a lot of very capital intensive business even before you even sell anything. Speak to that.
Right. Yeah, sure. So my plan, the way it unfolded was, I left my very comfortable job. It was very, very hard to leave. And actually, after I left, they tried to recruit me and bring me back. But I saved enough for 3 years. So my plan was to save enough for 3 years, and my vision was to build energy infrastructure the way that Apple builds devices. And so when you think of energy infrastructure, it's in the field for 50 to 100 years. So you really got to build it right so that it serves the needs of its customers. So I saved enough money for 3 years. I literally went online and found 2 exceptional engineers, and I sold them on this vision of a company that was going to build exceptional energy infrastructure. And so they came on board. And our first product was something that we could bootstrap to build, and that was a smart USB charger. So within 3 years, we were able to launch that to the market. We sold 1,700 to 1,700 customers, and our gross margins was 3x that of the industry at that time. So after that product, we quickly moved into EV charging because we had proved ourselves that we could, ideate, build, ship, and deliver an energy product. So in the EV charging space, we realized we did need a little bit more capital than our bootstrap resources. But because we had bootstrapped to date, we had really, really learned how to be scrappy. So we've been fortunate to raise a little bit of capital, less than $400,000. But even with that, we've been able to build and develop an EV charging product, an ecosystem where in the last couple of months, we've even sold our first 2 units to our first customer.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And you talked about fundraising and you talk about an ecosystem. with that. Talk a little bit more about an ecosystem, because one of the things that stands out, what you just said, is that you took something from ideation to actually delivering and revenue, and then you kind of exited that, and that was a precursor to what you're doing now. Just give me a little, and your ecosystem building while you're doing that. Explain when you say ecosystem, the stakeholders or the entities that are part of that ecosystem.
Yeah, when founders first dive into the energy space, who don't have prior experience, the first thing that hits them is how intricate and connected the energy ecosystem is. So you have regulators on one side, you have government agencies on the other side, you have state agencies, you have the end user, right? And then you have the intermediaries who may be utilities, large or small, right? And then you have construction companies who actually build and implement large power plants, or in our case, when it comes to EV charging, we have electricians and installers who are actually going to do the installation. And then you have equipment manufacturers. So all of this ecosystem, when I think about what we're doing at Pirl, I don't think about our solution alone. I think of us as building a solution, or the solution that works best is what helps everyone in the ecosystem to thrive and do their jobs better. And as we go down, I can delve more into our product, but that's how I think about the ecosystem, is that it's never about your narrow solution. You should be helping and help the entire ecosystem thrive. Otherwise, they're going to reject your product.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And you just, so we do want to take a deeper dive, Kobby, into the product and the solution. However, I do want to just reiterate what you just said. Regulatory bodies, public utilities, state and government agencies, construction firms, because all of these, all of this clean energy infrastructure ultimately has to be built. And so there's all the different dynamics associated with that, and every other challenge logistically that's connected to that. And so with that, you've navigated that. You've also been successful with founding a prior, with another solution. How then were you able to leapfrog all of that into actually obtaining a customer? Kind of tell me, because obviously you've done, you've sort of done the due diligence. Talk in the deeper in the product.
Yeah. So when our process of acquiring our first customer, and this is something we would recommend to founders and entrepreneurs, so anyone in this energy transition, is build relationships. So our first customer is a gentleman. It's a minority-owned firm, probably one of the largest in the DMV area. It's a real estate development company, and I went to an event for real estate developers, and I met them there. And at that time, Pirl's product wasn't ready because we were still in development. But he mentioned that he needed an EV charger in his home. He had just bought a new home in DC. And so I volunteered and said that, hey, we can install an EV charger for free. We're not going to charge you for the installation. And we just used a third-party product that was already in the market. So the process of us acquiring this customer was through delivering immediate value to the customer, in this case, the owner of the firm, even when our product wasn't ready, right? So one of the big takeaways that I tell all energy entrepreneurs is that always be selling. Even when your product or solution is not ready, find a way to sell something to someone, right? Whether sell a third party, solution, sell consultant, advice, right? Sell a strategy, do something to create value immediately for the customer, because the sales cycle in energy is long, as you know.
Oh man, yes.
But every day there is something valuable that you have that you could be selling, even simply your time, right?
Yes.
So that is what we try to do. Is we're always trying to sell something to create value to the customer, whether our solution is ready or not. And that builds the relationship where people, get to understand what we do, they get to trust us, and then now we can actually start bringing our solution to the market.
And that's also what I find is that whether in this space, and when I say this space, I call it this climate tech, this clean energy, economy ecosystem, you find that there's disproportionately the folks who are in this space, they're scientific researchers, they're engineers, they're people who are, kind of in the STEM spaces. And what I find is that there is so much emphasis on the technical validation, which is obviously you need, and economic modeling, and looking at it in a very linear kind of way. And, unlike what you might find with people who are consumer packaged goods solutions who maybe are, trying to find ways to enter the market. What I'm hearing you say is that you actually found a way to enter the market and validate what you're doing, and also have some different use cases and the relationship component of it, which is essential. And that is something in this space that is missing. And you're also, so tell me, and so that is interesting. Talk to me also about what do you want to get out of this? What do you hope to come, or what have you seen? I know it's early. What do you hope to come out of this in terms of data, in terms of customer feedback, helping you in the next iteration? Kind of share that as well.
Yeah, sure. Todd, you hit the nail on something that is very big and very important, and I really hope listeners, hold on to this, which is in the climate tech space, we really need to adopt some of the thinking from the CPG, consumer packaged goods space around branding, sales, and marketing.
Wow.
Right? In the climate space, we're so tied into technology, but the thing is, your technology, your direct air captures, they're not going to go and sell themselves, right? You need the sales, marketing, and branding that is, used in the consumer packaged goods industry to marry that, right? And so that is what I actually think is a big significant advantage. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. So tied into what are we, expecting out of our initial sales, what are we looking forward, to? For us, the most important thing is making it, our vision is to make it very easy for small and medium-sized businesses. They could be real estate development firms. They could be small property owners. We want to make it very easy for them, as easy as you open an app, you order an EV charger, you get it installed, and you generate revenue, right? We need small and medium-sized businesses to be engaged fully in owning and operating EV charging networks, because that is the only way we've identified that we can create enough charging stations by the year 2030 to meet all the EV vehicles that are coming onto the grid.
Interesting. And tell me a little more about the value proposition for the owner and operator of the small business, revenue or the value add to their customers, if they're, whomever they're serving, if it's a multifamily, if it's a small, if it's a strip mall. Kind of talk to me about what is that? Why would I want to invest in this and order this?
Yeah, sure. So the first value proposition is revenue, right? According to our estimates, you're going to pay back the cost of the unit within 1 year. So the first benefit is you're going to get revenue. The second is it's a very attractive amenity for your housing unit. There are more and more people driving EVs. They are looking to charge. Most EV charging happens at home or at destination, over 80%, right? So it's an attractive amenity that you want to attract future tenants or guests or people who are visiting your business establishment. The third piece is load management. And so you're able to dynamically manage when the charger is available. And in a lot of states, you actually get paid by the grid for reducing your load at certain peak hours. So we allow you to do that, and we pass on those savings onto you as well. The fourth benefit is, you as the owner, if you drive an EV, as a small and medium sized business owner, you get to charge,
Right.
at your own station. Perhaps the fifth and very unique to us is we've developed and we have 2 patents pending. What we call the first self-repairable and field upgradable EV charging unit. So when something goes wrong or you need to upgrade it or you need to repair it, you actually don't need to call an electrician. We send you a replacement unit and you, the owner, can do the replacement within 15 minutes. So within 15 minutes, you're back online.
Mm-hmm.
And compared to the other charging stations where you need to call an electrician, schedule, that might take 2 weeks. And it's typically over $1,500 for that. Whereas with Pirl, it's going to be, less than $700, and you can be online literally within 15 minutes.
Hey, Kobby, you know what? Wow, you know what? We're really just getting started, and we're going to have you back on another, on it, because here's the takeaway as I close out. I heard you talk about the heartbeat of America is small business, driving value to small business. 1. 2,
Absolutely.
What you talk about, an implicit benefit is driving EV adoption and EV sales by enhancing charger access. So you can not, a lot of people don't have an EV or won't drive an EV simply because they don't have access. That's the third thing. The second thing, load management on our electric grid is also increasingly important as we electrify this world. I mean, when we look at projections from various entities, we're talking about, depending upon the area, in some areas doubling the load, and like a place like Houston, potentially by the year, load demand by 2030, depending with business attraction, data centers, whole lot of, EV adoption. It could be up to doubling the load. And so being able to manage that is extremely important. And the other thing you talked about is sort of a self-healing model for this. We know that downtime, I experienced this, is also an impediment, is also a problem. Broken chargers that, that are problematic. I personally deal with that. And so all of those things, so you're addressing the immediate need, you're addressing everything we need today, helping to reduce carbon emissions. You've demonstrated why it makes sense to invest in this space and gain investor confidence. You've also provided a lot of insights and nuggets for founders who may be in this space, who need to tell their story, build relationships, and attract funding, and stay the course because of the long sales cycles and every other challenges associated with that. So, Kobby, I want to thank you. Thank you for being a guest today. And you've really, really, really helped to personalize and exemplify why investing in all people, investing capital, and protecting our environment is essential. You are living and breathing equity economics. So I want to thank you. And of course, you're next up, you're going to come back for season 2 as well. We got to have you to continue this discussion. So for sure, to continue this. And also, I'll be in I'll see you soon in DC. So I'll owe you lunch.
Looking forward to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Kobby. We'll talk later.
Okay.
And I want to thank everybody for listening. Please like, share, comments. I really want your insights on this, because this is a lot of this is very innovative, and I welcome and how this is resonating with you as well. Thank you. And remember that investing in all people, investing capital, also investing in our environment and protecting our environment, this is the framework of equity economics, as Kobby Osei-Kusi most aptly and adaptly shared today. Thank you so much.